Hi, Rick Warner, Sturdi-Built Greenhouses. Once again, I thought we'd talk about glazing materials today. And our roots go back to our big greenhouse here. You can see this glass wall here. This is a redwood frame and glass greenhouse. It was built in the 1940s. And this was the state-of-the-art of the nursery industry. And the glass that they used back then was standard size, what was called box glass, and most of it was 20 inches by 20 inches, and it just layered, kind of like a shingle roof. So you'd start with a piece of glass down low, and you'd put another piece of glass above, and you'd work your way up. And that's the way all the commercial greenhouses were made back in the 40s and 50s and really into the 60s. And that's where our roots come from. So our first greenhouses and most of our greenhouses today are all glass structures like this Tudor display. We have glass in the walls, have glass in the roof. We still use the overlapping glass technique because it's very forgiving. It flexes with the wind loads and earthquakes, and it's done real well. It's a good practical way of glazing a greenhouse in all glass. Since the 60s and 70s, there's been a lot of changes in the glazing materials available, mainly due to plastics. And all the commercial greenhouses now, very few of them are done in glass because the glass is very expensive. And the plastics have good properties of diffusion and also R value, heat retention is better. So we're going to take a look at some of the glazing materials we use today, which are different than what they were available when we first started making greenhouses in the 1950s. To get an idea of this lap glass technique, I got a close-up of our Tudor here. We started with a light of glass here. We have about a ½ inch of a lap here with another pane, and then we got a smaller piece above it. We don't necessarily have this many lights of glass in the end walls of our greenhouses today, but it gives you an idea of the lap technique. And it's a very effective technique, like I say, and it gives the glass a shear point to keep the glass from breaking under loads with winds and earthquakes. Now we've moved to our Trillium model, which is a newer model for us, and this one we've decided to sell with the glass walls like we have in all our others, but with a twin wall polycarbonate in the roof. And the twin wall polycarbonate looks like this. I describe it as being similar to a piece of cardboard, except being made out of a piece of plastic. And you can see these veins in it. These veins give the polycarbonate some structure. They also diffuse the light, and if you can see, there's an air gap here, and that helps with the R value of the glazing material. So this is a widely used material in commercial greenhouses. We like to use it in the roof because it does offer shade and diffusion and extra heat retention out of the roof where you lose most of your heat. It also allows for a little bit of shading and a safety glazing per se as well. It's a nice combination because I think it's still nice to be able to see in and out of the walls as a human. Your greenhouse looks better. It's a more relaxing place for you. And it shows off your plants nicely. One of the unique features of a Sturdi-Built greenhouse is our double glazing system, and we developed this back in the late 70s, early 80s, right around the first oil energy crisis. So we wanted to create a greenhouse that was easier to heat and use less energy. So we created a double glazing system using plastic materials. And these plastic materials are put inside of the glass. The two materials that we use today are a window clear acrylic, like this. This is a piece that would go in the walls to maintain the window clear appearance of the greenhouse. And then this white twin wall polyethylene, and it is a twin wall material made very similar to the twin wall polycarbonate. It has an air gap, so it has extra insulation. It has about a 30% shade factor, so it really does provide a lot of diffusion overhead. So we use this mainly in the roof again, so that we maintain clear visibility through the walls. And this material bends and goes into some grooves that we put in our greenhouse frames on a standard basis. So I'm going to put a couple of these pieces in just to give you a feel for it. As mentioned, we use this in the walls primarily, and so we can put it in this bay. It's put into grooves that we have built into the structure, and it bends, goes into those grooves, and you put it up into place. And you can see my hand on the inside here, spaced about 5/8 of an inch dead air space between the glass and the acrylic. So this gives an insulating factor and still maintains the good looks of the greenhouse structure. In the roofs, a lot of times we use, like I say, the white twin wall polyethylene, like this piece, and that goes in the same kind of grooves. See in the roof here, and then we flex it. It goes into the other groove. We have some support strips to keep it looking nice and neat. They're part of the system. Goes at the bottom, so that creates a dead air space between the outer glazing and the inner glazing. So in this particular configuration, we have a twin wall polycarbonate on the outside, which has a dead air space, a 5/8 dead air space, and then we have another dead air space in the twin wall polyethylene material on the inside. And so that gives you 3 dead air spaces. It's a very efficient system. It yields an R value of about between 4 and 5, which is very high in the industry. I think it's one of the highest. And so you get a very nice diffuse light, but also a very energy efficient roof. To summarize our talk on glazing, traditionally glass has been the glazing material we've used the most, but as mentioned recently, recently being the last probably 10 years or so, we have a lot of customers that use glass in the walls, twin wall polycarbonate in the roof. It's a nice combination. We have our double glazing thermal option, where we use acrylic over the glass under the glass rather to maintain the good looks of the greenhouse, and a lot of times we go with inner glazing in the roof of a twin wall polyethylene. And so this double glazing system increases the R value or heat retention of the greenhouse. But I think the other thing that's important to think about in heat retention in a greenhouse is the greenhouse frame itself. We use wood, which transfers heat I think 1,700 times less quickly than aluminum or metals. So the frame is a lot warmer. We build a fairly tight greenhouse as well, so retaining heat is a lot easier in our structure than a lot of other structures made today. We have a lot of options here with the glazing. We do encourage you to call and talk through your situation so we can best advise you on what will work best for your climate and the type of plants that you grow. Thank you.